For this video, I think I labeled it something like August internal monologue, something like this. Anyway, I'm a very contemplative person. I'm having these ideas around my age, which is always, I don't know, is that the plague of being in your 20s? I do feel like it is. I turned 26 pretty soon, so I'm 25 now. And you know that study that says that by 25 the human brain fully develops or matures? It's not really true. Like they said, like it's more so like your late 20s to early 30s that the brain reaches maturity, which yeah, for me, yeah, I'm like, is this it? You know, have we fully downloaded? I'm like, no, I don't believe it. So yeah, I was happy I got a few more years. Anyway, I don't know. You kind of have to take this stuff with like a grain of salt. You know what I mean? Like it's not gospel. Like you don't have to fully believe it. I do think by that time you do feel like a little bit more of a realized person, and you maybe can now have, you know, a little bit of distance like from your younger self, and so you can probably analyze a lot of like behaviors and things that you're doing. But anyway, because I turned 26 pretty soon, it has been true, like my internal monologue mainly has been about that. I don't know, I honestly, once again, I do think it's a plague of being in your 20s. Like you're constantly plagued by timelines and your age, and you're like, I think you just obsess over it. Me, my friends, all of that, like it's the same thing, you know? I do feel like one day you wake up and just like, I don't care. And I'm waiting so eagerly for that day because it really feels like some kind of plague, you know? Wait, is this level? Hold on. It's not revelatory at all, but I said hobbies can save lives, which is a very dramatic way of saying that I think it's nice now that I've developed my own individual interests. Like they're not for consumption or for commerce. They're just like purely something I do just because I enjoy it. You know what I mean? That's what a hobby is. You still want to apply yourself wholeheartedly and really try and make something the best it could possibly be, even if it is just a hobby. And treating my hobbies as like something sacred, treating my hobbies as something almost ritualistic in a way that you do in order to like connect with something else in yourself. Sometimes hobbies feel like a luxury, or there is this really big push now to like make hobbies like more commercial, like for commerce, or like it's cool to have a hobby, but like how are you monetizing it? You know, what? Send us the link. You know, do you have an Etsy? Like, bro, no, I don't know. When you look at hobbies as something purely like a ritual to really connect with yourself and to really learn more about yourself, I feel like in that way it can save lives, and that's what I've learned. And when you take your hobby and really, really try your best to be actually really, really good at that hobby, just for yourself, not to like commercialize it, not to post a video about it, but like just, even though this is my hobby and I'm posting a video about it, but I don't do this for clicks, you know? I love editing. Like I love editing. I love talking. I'm such a I love thinking, you know? Which, good segue, thinking about thinking. Another, one that I wrote here is be aware of your own biases. Be curious about the way you think and process information, which is very true. And there's a term for this, actually. It's called metacognition. And the definition of that, I wrote it down. I'm slipping in and out of a British accent, by the way, because I've been watching Love is Blind, the UK version. So I've been talking in an English accent. That's... Okay. Metacognition is the ability to understand, watch, and control your own mind and thoughts. We process and filter so much information and project our own subconscious biases and fallacies onto the information that we receive. And I'm not exempt from that. And thinking about thinking, really analyzing, how do I process information? What are some of the biases that I have? Everyone is biased, you know what I mean? And sometimes I feel like a lot of the misunderstandings that can even happen on a relational level are because sometimes I don't take the time to really process about the information that I'm getting and really think, what are the filters? What are the psychological, emotional filters? All the, you know, the vignettes of my life that are really being projected onto this information, onto this experience. And how am I really processing this information? And that can be applied onto very small things and also very grand things as well, like big life philosophies, your politics, news, all of these things. I feel like it also starts when you yourself as an individual are curious about how you think, how you process information. Am I being biased? Probably. Yeah. You know, really, if we were to ask ourselves, okay, I heard this information. Do I have biases towards a particular thing? Am I really looking at this objectively? No. But then that raises a larger philosophical question. Like, human beings, do they even have the power to be objective? No. You know what I mean? Like everything that we experience in some way, shape or form colors the canvas of our mind. And there's always something running in the background that informs everything that we think about and what we receive as information. So maybe but I think it's good to be aware of that. That's what I'm saying. I don't think the goal is objectivity in everything. No, I think the goal is to just be aware of like, yeah, I'm probably biased. And literally that's the first step to being like a more empathetic, understanding, intellectual person. Okay, and speaking of subconscious, the next thing that I had here was that I've learned in my sage age of 25 is the subconscious is an incredibly potent part of a person. We aren't really taught how to confront, listen to it, or value it. And it's true. I mean me, I wasn't really taught growing up, like not really, like how to just not stifle our subconscious, but like to really see how much it informs us. I'm not sure whether it's really true, that thing of like your subconscious self is your true self, your shadow self is the real you. I don't know if I really subscribe to exactly that. Okay, I'll give you an example. I mean, it's pretty personal. But in high school, I think I don't know, I didn't really keep a lot of those relationships that I had with very close people. I think I think I enjoyed a lot of things silently in high school, and I felt maybe a little bit misunderstood, but I just didn't have the emotional maturity, or just the decency, I'm roasting myself, to really explain that to these people. So I think when high school ended, I kind of was just really intent on like not keeping a lot of those friendships. And the conscious narrative that I was telling myself about this was, I'm fine. I don't care. I'd start a new life. My world is opened up. I can meet and be friends with so many people. And so this was the narrative I was telling myself consciously. But there was one particular friend that I had, was like my best friend in high school. And for the better part of a year, an entire year, intermittently, like in and out, she would always appear in my dreams, just out of nowhere. And every time I would sob in my dreams, like crying. You know, my brother who went, when I lived with him, he would hear, like, you know, like me crying, like, you were crying last night, like, and I'd wake up like really feeling heavy and like so like bereaved in a way. And I was like, I don't know what that's about, you know, and only like now when I really get to see, it's like, well, on a subconscious level, you had not dealt with that grief, like, you know what I mean? And on a subconscious level, like that was the real emotionality that you were feeling, actually. The conscious story that you were telling yourself of like, I don't really care, I'm fine, I'm good, that wasn't the truth. And how sometimes it's not a matter of like taming the subconscious or anything, but just observing it and understanding it and really seeing how much of that is true. Like so much of our emotionality is really hidden behind this like sheer psychological curtain, and that curtain would be the subconscious, you know, like so much of ourselves. Like for me, my biggest motivator, or one of my biggest motivators, is always with the like intent of trying to understand myself and who I am as a person. Me, Fadzai, if you really want to understand yourself well, you have to be able to confront your subconscious. You have to be able to like know it well. And one of the ways I did that, one is through dreams. Like, I don't know if I'm really as woo-woo. Woo-woo is probably derogatory. There's people who believe in this, and that's fine. But I'm not, personally me, I don't think I'm a person who really believes that like people, you know, like the dreams are like always truth, or like there's a higher power influencing the dreams. Like, I don't really know. I don't know. Maybe personally I just haven't experienced that. Maybe that's why. But I do think if dreams are anything, I do think they're a really good window into the subconscious self. I don't think you have to take everything that you dream about as gospel. To be honest, most of us have a hard time even remembering our dreams. But for those of us who can, or try make a practice of trying to remember it, I do think it does tell us a lot about what's happening inside, like our inner psychological world. And I think dreams, journaling, therapy, like all these things kind of reveal this like shadow self, or like delve deeper into our psyche. There's so many terminology for like, I think pretty much what is like the same concept. I think sometimes there's a lot of like, especially when it comes to like emotionality, there's a lot of like emotions that we feel a lot of shame feeling. Like we tell ourselves a narrative to perceive ourselves as one way. I'm a good person. I don't get envious. I don't get jealous at all. And so that's consciously what we're telling ourselves. But subconsciously, the envy is still there. Just because we tell ourselves one story consciously doesn't mean that those feelings are not repressed in the subconscious. And I feel like sometimes with repression of emotion, what really comes up a lot is that it can manifest itself as like physical pain in the body. Like, you know what I mean? People who are really like docile, especially with women, like, you know, especially women who grow up, like who are conditioned through to be very like docile, very agreeable. You think it's fine, but like you end up with like chronic illnesses. And it's really true. Like literally they've studied it. Lifelong chronic illnesses, or with pain that just manifests in different areas because of all of these things that are repressed and like, I don't know. I like to think of it as like a psychological knot, you know, or like a mat. Like, you know, when your hair like gets matted, I feel like it's the same thing. Like the longer you like don't confront your your subconscious self, the more you're not intrigued by it, or at least investigative about it, it becomes like a knot, you know, and it becomes very hard to untangle. Once again, I feel like I know myself more, even if it's something I don't really like. Sometimes I have to like admit to myself thoughts, feelings, and emotions that like I've repressed and I want to repress so badly. Certain memories and things like that inform who I am today. I want to repress that. I don't want to look at that. Who, you know what I mean? Because it doesn't feel good. Like, it doesn't feel good. But I do feel like more of a whole person. Like, I feel more confident in myself because I really confronted a lot of the ugly things about myself. And I hope that this is a lifelong endeavor and not just something that I neglect to do. And when I do neglect to do it, I do notice it does manifest as like physical pain, or like I always feel like, why do I feel like I'm always on the verge of crying, or like why my dreams feel so dark, or like why does this thing keep reoccurring in my mind, you know? I feel like these are all ways that like the mind, the subconscious self, the psyche, the shadow, however you want to call it, is like trying to communicate to us. And I think the endeavor is ultimately to just know ourselves wholly and fully, not just the version that we think sounds nice to other people or that even sounds nice to us. And to really be honest with yourself, like really honest with yourself. I feel like if you want to, like, I don't know, I feel like that's probably the pathway, or one of the keys to just being a more rounded, more empathetic person and more kinder person to yourself. You know, this isn't revelatory, by the way. Like Brene Brown probably has like a 2-hour podcast on this stuff. But I think that my voice is quite raspy, by the way. Not raspy, but like, I don't know. It's winter here. It's very cold. I'm going to get water. Hold on. I'll wrap it up. Okay, I just had one last one. It was at the end of the day, no. Oh, I was also going to talk about relationships. Okay, this is kind of like one and the same. Relationships are only an incubator of sorts, but cannot actually change you. They are not transformative as you were told. For a better part of my life, and we're already like conditioned with this through a lot of like storytelling, especially about like romantic relationships, especially being like what saves you, what transforms you, what radically changes your life. And a lot of, I don't know, growing up, especially now, kind of realizing a lot of that conditioning, first of all, whether that conditioning came by just through societal norms, through media, and really undoing a lot of that and realizing, and also just entering into relationships and realizing they don't really change you, you know? And a person, that's such a big responsibility to put on a person for them to change you. I think, you know, you admire that person and there are certain aspects of them that motivate you, but no, they don't change you. You know what I mean? And a relationship itself cannot change you. It's more of an incubator for who you already are. And the fact that like it highlights a lot of the things that are already resonant within you. How you regulate, how you communicate, all of these things are just highlighted. They don't magically change. I think even for one, I mean, my dad always says this, is like, your mother really changed me as a person. And I don't know, like maybe also I just haven't been partnered long enough to really know this. Maybe the change that happens is so molecular that you don't really feel it in the moment or in very early stages of relationships. Maybe they do change you. But to that, I would say that like, I don't think that person changed you. I don't think mom necessarily changed you. I feel like you were the one that changed. But like being around mom influenced you to change. Or some of her qualities that you picked up and saw that you don't have within yourself, which is a very like, I know that is one of the like hypotheses, like, you know, that like when we pick partners, we're subconsciously picking people who have traits and characteristics that we feel like we are missing, and that's why we partner with these people, which yeah, that's probably true. But I think at the end of the day, you're the one still doing the transformation and you're the one doing the change. I feel like if anything, for me personally, I always really was conditioned a lot to believe that like once you get married, that's when you'll change and be like this different person, and like all of these habits and fallacies and esteem issues that you have, suddenly they'll just disappear because you found this person who can pour into you. No, I feel like largely you're setting yourself up to be quite disappointed, actually. And I have been. But like, no, I feel like you're the one that's doing that change and you're the one doing the transformation. Of course, naturally, by way who you surround yourself with, you'll naturally be influenced by those people, but you're the one still doing the change. You are still the catalyst to your own change, which is like another point that I had of like, no one can really save you. I feel like sometimes I also have this expectation of like a certain friendship saving me, a certain mentor, a certain person will like, once I find this, that's when like, it'll be like my nirvana, you know, I'll finally change and transform into this magical new person. Not really. I feel like people help you and reach out their hand within their own capacity. Sometimes the capacity is not good enough for us, and that's fine. But I feel like sometimes, me personally, I think I would save myself a lot of heartache by just accepting that people can't really change you. You know what I mean? Like, they can help you, they can influence you, but you are still the one who has to like reach out your hand to like, you know, take on that advice and implement that advice and make it into a habit, a lifestyle, or a philosophy for your own life. I just feel like less expectation on people, less expectation on formats of relationships for them to like suddenly change you. Because actually change is very hard and change is very, very difficult. And I feel like sometimes we underestimate that. We can subconsciously or consciously project a lot of that onto other people, unfairly so. And sometimes people don't even know that that's what's expected of them in relationships. You just find yourself dissatisfied and unhappy with certain friendships or relationships and you're like, why? You know, why? why. But if you really do a lot of digging, especially for me, when I did a lot of digging, I was like, well, actually, there's a lot of unfair expectation that I'm putting on a lot of this stuff. Like for it to like magically change me or to fill in these like big gaping emotional holes that I have within me. And it's like, no, you actually have to do that. Like that stuff, I don't think it comes from another person. I think it comes from you putting in work, like real, tangible, painful, grueling self-work in order to actually fix and cover up a lot of those holes or like lackings within ourselves, and effort. I don't think that comes from other people. I feel like people can, but then again, that's subject to change. And I feel like maybe that's quite a pessimistic way to look at community. Yeah, I agree. I think it is. But I feel like that's just been my experience now. And I'm only 25, which is the point of this video, is I'm only 25. And so I don't know, a lot of this stuff will change. I'm sure I'll probably do a video like this or watch this back when I'm 30 and be like, I don't agree with that at all. And like, that's literally the point. Like, that's the point of life. Like, you know what I mean? You're not stuck with a certain philosophy or way of thinking or a certain mindset for life. Like, it's not a jail, It's like you try it out and you're like, okay, I agree. And then you have a new experience or you meet new people and you're like, oh, actually, I used to think this way, but now I think this way, which is literally what this whole video is about. So yeah, I don't know. Once again, I'm rambling. I never know if I make any sense. Yeah, I think that's it. I'm gonna leave it here. Okay, bye.